Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Nez Porter down here by, I guess you would call this the Atlantic Ave and Seaport Boulevard area. Now, I don't usually venture out downtown too often, but every so often I do. Atlantic Ave, Seaport. We're right at the foot of the well-known Evelyn Moakley Bridge. Now, those of you who don't know, maybe you do know, I believe it was on Tuesday. A light pole has fell down and seriously injured a pedestrian as she was walking across the bridge. Now, upon further investigation, I found that all these light poles were installed in an unsafe manner. And when I say unsafe manner, if you look at it, they got concrete around the base of the lamp post. Now, anyone that does this kind of work knows that you don't put concrete and metal directly like that, because what usually ends up happening is the metal kind of wickens water through the concrete, and then it absorbs the water into the metal, causing rust. The other thing I noticed is, if you ever had to service these light poles, the bolts and nuts that are supporting the light pole are covered up. So fair to say, whenever they built this bridge, they just never serviced them. This is a very, very poor design. Like, you have metal covered up by concrete. Now, the majority of these lights are not working anyway. I see only 3 out of this whole stack on this side that's working. The other ones are taken down. I believe there's 23 of them over there taken down as a precautionary measure. Now, I was talking to an individual earlier, and he was telling me that whoever designed this and whoever okayed it pretty much didn't know what they were doing. Um, I'm not going to say who he is and what he knows, but just give you an example of how this looks underneath, so you can see. You move this out the way. That's how they look underneath. They're rotted out like that. Now, you see the cracking of the metal plate. It's cracking because it's just cracking. They're not being properly maintained. They're not upgraded properly. There is a lot of money for change of this infrastructure, but it hasn't been used. And the question is, where has the money went to? But now they're kind of forced to do it over here. As you can see, I'll walk on that side in a second. Those individuals are putting all temporary light poles up for the time being. Every single pole that I've seen is covered with concrete, and that's not the correct way to install these. If you go up to the rest, any other parts of the city of Boston, the bolts are typically exposed. I mean, you want those things to be protected from the weather, but you want them not to be, deteriorating where you can't monitor them either. I mean, how can you possibly inspect this if you can't effectively even see it? Like, the base of that, like, how do I know what the condition of that base if I can't even see the condition of the base? Like, we just tap on the pole and say it's okay. And how do you determine that it's not rotting out? And from what I understand, there was more than one 311 call that was made. Um, I think there was more than one 311 call made. Some of the 311 calls, just so you guys know, don't always get put into the computer. And I know that for a fact because I've done a video where they couldn't find a 311 call that I put in myself. So that's a proven fact. Now speaking of facts that I know about, it's not alleged. I did a 311 call on the video, and they couldn't. I gave them the precise number, and they could not find it. And that's why I go around documenting what I see in the city of Boston. You know, it's to help them get better, let other people be aware of what's going on in the city as well. And this right here is not looking good for the city of Boston. I mean, they're gonna have to change all these poles. And a lot of people walking by and not even aware what took place. A lot of people have no idea what took place. But transparency and accountability goes a long way. Take a look at these. At this point, all these poles got to come down. You can't even trust that these are structurally sound. How could you? Like, how would you properly inspect these poles if you can't see what's underneath the concrete? And all the ones I see, which is a very poor design, who puts concrete around a light pole? Entirely around the light pole. Now, every time it rains or snows, or any kind of moisture in that matter gets onto the porous concrete, it pretty much is going to suck right into the metal. It's like a little wick. It's going to wick it right up. So that's why when you build decks, you don't put the wood directly into the ground anymore, because they found that the wood was wicking up from the dirt, the water, and moisture. So they don't do that anymore. Now the question now is, who designed this bridge? Who okayed it? And why? Because somebody had to design this. This just wasn't done all by itself. Somebody just didn't say, let's do it this way because we want to do it this way. Somebody had to design it. Somebody had to okay it. Somebody also had to inspect it, or should have. Just correct myself. Somebody should have. Let me say it again. Somebody should have inspected it. Now, if they did inspect it, what did they find, or what were their comments on it? If everything was okay, then that inspector should not be an inspector, because it's not okay. And that's the thing about it too. A lot of these inspectors, and I know quite a few of them, they honestly don't know a whole lot. Just so you know, they don't know a whole lot. After you start talking to them and listen to them, they really don't have a lot of knowledge behind it. And I'm gonna quote what I heard somebody else say. Inspectors are usually people who failed doing the actual work. So they couldn't survive in the field, so they ended up becoming an inspector. And I heard this from guys who actually work in the field. And he told me he knows some inspectors that, call themselves inspectors, but they don't have a clue of what they're looking at. So you see what we're dealing with here, right? Concrete bases covering the metal. Why is it doing that? I have no idea. Then also somebody said, well, if they did the light post wrong, imagine what they did to the structure of the actual bridge itself. And I said, I don't even want to think about that right now. They said, just imagine what the structure of the bridge is like. If so you guys, if you guys haven't seen this area before, this is Sleeper Street right here, just so you guys know. A lot of people walking by are not too familiar with what happened in this area. But they should know. They really should know, because it can happen to them. It can happen to one of their loved ones. And take a quick walk over here and show you what's happening on this side over here. Let those cars pass by. Always let the cars do what they got to do. Never ever go against the grade of the traffic. That wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be safe. Figure after this white truck I can go because the light just turned. Go ahead, buddy. You got it. Keep going. Keep going. That's another thing I noticed. A lot of distracted driving. So on this side, this is a sleeper street right there. If you can see it, I don't know if you guys can see it. Zoom in on Sleeper Street. Sleeper Street and Seaport Boulevard. We are at sidewalk closed. You can see the temporary lights that they have up there. I'll walk down and show you what they pretty much have going on. You know, then I'll be documenting what else I see in the city. Come up next week, I got some plans of really showing people a lot of various different things. We got a lot of structural integrity there. When I say structural integrity, I mean structural. You know what I mean? So the weirdest thing is, as weak as those poles are, they actually change it to that pole as if that pole would stop somebody from stealing it. And you see they're drilling the holes, putting the epoxy in there, which is right. And they're going to space it so that it's not touching the concrete. And they're using stainless steel bolts, by the way, just so you know. They're using stainless steel bolts, which makes a big difference. That's the company that's doing the work. Mass Bay, out of East Boston. Um, just give you an idea like what's going on here. Kind of see how even the boxes are cracking. All these boxes are cracking. I don't know exactly when this bridge was built. Somebody asked me that question. I said I don't know. I think it had to be built maybe 40 years ago, maybe more. I really don't know that answer. But either way, actually, when was this bridge built? That's good. Now, see, now you got me thinking. Now I gotta really start looking into it. Like, when was it built? See how the bolts are covered up, and they're kind of like rotting through, which deems the whole thing unsafe. If the base is unsafe, so they're giving the epoxy some time to set. But if the base is unsafe, then the rest of it's unsafe. They got the Milwaukee hammer drill. But look at all these. Why would you cover up the nuts and bolts that holds the lamp together? I can't figure that out. Why would you do something like that? I'll give you a look at these lights over here. All those lights in the back of that truck, and maybe a few more are going to be installed along this stretch here. I got some epoxy on the bolts there. And I'm not too sure how those. I've seen people put those in, and everybody uses a different method of putting those in. I assume epoxy, as long as you got the right strength of epoxy, is fine. And you drill the right size hole to match up with the epoxy strength that you're using, is perfectly fine. And considering those light poles are not that heavy, they're really not too heavy. That's suitable for the job. Now, if they were the larger light poles, the taller ones, I would probably think they might not be suitable for the job. So that's what we have here. Um, You can see where the base is. The base is like right there. So if you was to like really look at how it's set, somebody told me the pits, they were so much pitted out. They're surprised they even last that long. The metal was so much rotted out and deteriorated. They were surprised that it even stood up that long. And I'm not too sure if that's salt water over there or not. I don't know. Is that salt water over there? Do you know? That's not salt water, is it? It is salt water. Oh, so so the Atlantic Ocean, yeah, that could play a key factor on it too. He said Atlantic Ocean, so it is salt water. And the salt, and somebody says salt doesn't get airborne, but I beg to differ. Salt can be airborne, depends on how it's airborne. It could be the wind. It could be, you know, various different things that make the various different things can make salt in the air. Mainly the wind. The rain could probably do it. I don't know if it can or not. And but the biggest concern I see is that the concrete is covering the whole base of the pole, which theoretically you should never ever do. Trying to figure who okayed that though. Trying to figure who would There's another one here. It's probably the one they had to take down too. They took down 23 of them, by the way, just so you guys know. 23 out of, I'm not too sure how many they have altogether, but that's a, yeah, those. The other thing, which, while I'm here, the thing that you're really supposed to go by is the thickness of the actual metal. And there's not much healthy metal there. It's some healthy metal, but not a lot. Some of the walls are very thin when it comes to some of the walls are pretty thin. Yes, that's it's very very questionable. I bet you never seen a design like that before, man. Now, my trade is happen to be electrical wiring, right? Everybody knows water and electricity don't go together. But my question is, why would you put that concrete around the metal base? He already knows this stuff. I already talked to him earlier. He told me it's not suitable. Yeah, I'm not gonna say what he said, but he told me it's not suitable. But my question would be like, who would put concrete around metal, knowing that the water from the concrete will wicken up with the it's like a wick. You know what I mean? So almost like I don't know, but somebody authorized that. Take care, buddy. Be safe. Somebody, all these guys are shaking their head, and these guys work in the field, so they know they wouldn't do that. And when you're a maintenance tech, and I am a maintenance tech, you always think of how you service something. Is it serviceable? Now, putting concrete around the whole thing like this, it's not serviceable. Now look at this is what that gentleman was talking about. I'm not gonna say who told me about this, but he said, look at this. See how the concrete wicking the water up? See how it kind of sucked it up into the metal. You see the holes inside of the actual metal? Now, that takes years of deterioration. That's not 1 year, not 2 year, not 3 year, not four, but multiple years of deterioration. Now, there also what you can do is you can show you a flake of this. So while we're here, there's a flake of this. This thing kind of brittles in your hand. See how that it breaks in your hand? that's so brittle, it crumbles in your hand. So look at this. It just really falls apart. You can take one piece and make many pieces out of it. So that tells you that this stuff is very, very fragile. Now imagine 150, 200 pound pole, even heavier, being supported by literally nothing. In reality, that's like that's like nothing. You see right here, and a visual inspection from the outside would see that. But the main cause of that is from the concrete touching the metal. If the concrete was not touching the metal, more likely you can just and providing there's no water on the inside of the pole, more likely every so many years you could probably just sand down the rust and paint it and it'd be fine. But because it's rotten from the inside out, it's very, very hard to it's very, very hard to do that. Same as here. Now, like I said, somebody had put in a 311 call. So the city of Boston knew about it, but they failed to act upon it. And I was talking to somebody. I think there was more than one 311 call, to be honest with you. I think they just only said one. I think there was quite a few 311 calls. The city of Boston is pretty bad with keeping records, and they don't always file every call that comes in. So that's why I encourage people to document what goes on, because what the city of Boston would do is, if more than one person called for the same thing, they put it under the same work order, and that's not how you're supposed to do it. Each time a person calls, you're supposed to generate a separate work order. I don't care if 100 people call, generate 100 work orders, because that's how you document things properly. You know what I mean? If one person calls and you say, okay, only one person call, now another person calls right behind that person, but you put it under the same work order number. Oh, they already put it in. We're not gonna put another one in. That's not proper documentation. Proper documentation would be you put down that person's complaint separate from the other person's complaint. Whether you like it or not, it's a separate complaint because they call separately, and you have to treat it that way. That's how you professionally document it. But if you put down one complaint and say only one person called, in reality, four people called, because talking to a few people, I think more than one call was made. And I'm almost positive. I don't want to say 100% because that person does not want to make himself known. But at this point, I have to believe the person. Like, the city of Boston is not really looking good at this point. So, are you going to believe the city of Boston, or you believe a person that told you that they called multiple times? No, I think I have to gear towards the person that may have called multiple times. Because if the city of Boston was currently and actively performing their duties the correct way, they probably wouldn't have this in the first place. Yeah, somebody's lawyer is gonna want to see that. Somebody's lawyer is definitely gonna want to see that. I'm not gonna say who, but somebody's lawyer would definitely want to see that. Now you see right here how it looks like the water is kind of like sucking. It's like a straw. You're sucking the water through the. You're sucking the water through the concrete. All right, my man, don't work too hard now. So they're doing what they gotta do, trying to get these things in there as best they can. That's not an ideal spot to put them, but at this point, where else could you put them at? It, theoretically, you should have more space in between there. You want to have some wiggle room, but they don't have a lot of wiggle room because of the design of the bridge. But you guys kind of get the legit to what's going on here. Um, you'll be putting up these poles. And somebody pointed out this thing over here. I don't know if this belongs to the city or not, but this thing here, that's about to collapse. And I don't know if that was an old bridge or what that was used for. It wasn't a bridge. Maybe it was just like a decking. But either way, that should be taken down or fixed. You shouldn't just leave it up like that. You can see what I see. You wouldn't want to leave that up there like that. Yeah, you don't want to leave stuff like that up there. If it's going to cause more harm than good, take it down. You know if you're not going to fix it, you know, you should decide quickly. You shouldn't. The longer you wait, that's pretty much like dust down there. That's not even. You see how the base is crumbled up underneath the bottom of it, so that's really not even cool at all. I'm going to show you a few more of these. See all it's all the rust dust. It's all the rust dust right there. I'll just show you this one too, since we're down here. These ones over here are pretty bad off. These were the worst of the worst. See that right there? I mean, that's why I document what I see in the city of Boston, because if I would have told you how it looks, you would be like, I don't believe you. But when I show you how it looks, seeing is more believing. If you want to come down here and check it out for yourself, if you doubt it, look at all the like we have. It's the pointing towards the financial district. So these poles are most of these poles are gonna probably be up tonight. Um, Now, prime example. You see how the base of the pole is on a platform? That's the way it should be, on like a little platform base, same as that one over there, on a little platform base. So the majority of the ones that are done the right way, they're on like a little platform base, but they're kind of isolated from the concrete. They're not like directly covered in concrete, because now the water could drain away from it rather than pull into it. And it makes it easier to inspect and look at. So if you do it the right way, more likely you won't have a problem. Now all these ones are put on like a base, like under there's a concrete base with some bolts coming out of there. Same as this one. See, when you do these things like this, theoretically that's the way you should do it. So now you get access to the base, you get access to you can inspect it properly to see what's going on. Now these are done in that same manner. If you lift up that base at the bottom, you see the four bolts that holds the pole down. That base right there is just a decoration. But if you lift it up, that's pretty heavy though. But if you were to lift it up, you would see the base underneath how it looks. All right, guys, I'm gonna head up out of here. want to show you a little bit what's going on in the city of Boston. I guess I'll catch you guys on the next one.